It could be the end for Daniel Ricciardo, but maybe not. At least that's the speculation this morning. Great weekend for McLaren, 1 and 3, but it still might not be enough for Lando Norris, and that's because of Daniel Ricciardo. And we'll start there. End of the race, Lando Norris has the fastest lap going. He was going to gain 8 points on Max Verstappen, and it turned out only to be 7. And those points mean a lot, Tim, especially this time of year. Because Daniel Ricciardo, way from the back, was able to pull a fastest lap out of his hat on lap 61. And that might be his swan song. Christian Horner said it was your old pal Daniel over the radio to Max Verstappen to get the fastest lap. Max said, "Thank you, Daniel," in a really effusive and fun way because we know they have a long friendship. And Tim, Daniel, after the race, got emotional with a friend of the show, Lawrence Barretto, at the F1 media pit. Let's start there. Let's start with Daniel. Do you believe that this was his last race in a Red Bull branded car?
Oh, Adam, that's a fully loaded question, man, after all the stuff that's gone on this weekend. I mean, look, coming in, he had, no clue what was going on or going to be happening. What I had heard was the fact that after summer break, he had been told that he'd be in the car for the rest of the season.
Right.
And there were, I think, performance reviews after, I believe it was Japan, and I think the other one was Singapore, but don't quote me on it. And then, all of the scenes that we saw throughout the paddock at the end of that one, I mean, it does make you feel like that was it, right? But then no one seems to know. Like,
right.
Laurent Mekies doesn't know. Peter Beyer, who's the CEO of RB, doesn't know. I don't even think the sponsors know.
Right.
Or the partners, I should say. And then, like the TV broadcasts, some of them, some of the questions. Like, it's just... It felt like this was some sort of like a retirement. Like he was like retiring from Formula One, which he very well could be. Like, nobody knows. No one knows what's going on, right? No one knows if he's going to be in the car for Austin. No one knows if he won't be in the car for Austin. And I just think it's been handled very poorly. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been handled poorly by Red Bull Racing. I think this whole situation could have been handled a lot better. And that's tough for a driver. He put on a pretty brave face all weekend, if you ask me. I mean, he was pretty professional throughout the entire weekend when I don't know if a lot of drivers would be able to be that professional. Like,
right.
When they don't really know like what's going on. Like he has an idea, he says, but I mean, we all have ideas. I don't know. Nobody knows, man. It's pretty wild. And, you got to focus on driving a race car and right. You got to focus on trying to be fast and put everything out of your head and be competitive. And I mean, Christian Horner, saying to F1 that they have to reevaluate a whole bunch of things during these next 3 weeks, and we'll see what happens before we get to Austin. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And so we and the media and even the driver at this moment don't truly know what's happening. I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming days and weeks that lie ahead. But I mean, for now, as of us recording this on Monday early morning, 23rd of September, 2024, we have no clue.
No clue. And what's so weird is that it was one rumor, but it seemed to really take hold of the paddock. Like, this is it. Like, the team lining up and high-fiving him in back on the way in, him having some tears, like I said, with Lawrence Barretto. He did say earlier on in the weekend that maybe it wasn't the fairy tale that maybe we'd hoped it would be, but the fact that he got back in the car, after McLaren, after that situation was still a good thing. I mean, you do have tantalizing talent with Liam Lawson waiting in the wings. And I understand when they say V-Carb is a junior team. It is. And that's fair. You are, grooming Yuki Tsunoda, so you can make that argument. But what I would say too, Tim, is Sergio Perez went back to being anonymous this weekend. He was a factor in Baku. He loves that track. He does quite well there. He went back to being just another racer this weekend. And it's interesting that Daniel from a different team was able to help Max out more than Sergio was. And my question, and the reason I say Red Bull branded car, is there are articles, there are people speculating this morning, like listen, he might not be in V car. They might put Liam Lawson in, and that's it. But can we honestly say that Sergio Perez, who was outqualified many times by Logan Sargent, who is no longer in a car, can we honestly say that Sergio has done enough to keep that seat? And if Daniel is only there till the end of the season, or he's there next season as just literally a foil for Max Verstappen to get another title, it feels like it could make sense. And it also feels like the vibes would be great. It's also great for sponsorship money. There seems to be things that make a lot of sense. So does Sergio, though. Sergio brings a ton of money to the team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the Mexican backing that Sergio has, coming into the team is very great. Yeah. It's a tough conversation for, I think, Red Bull to have because of their driver pipeline, right? Mm-hmm. Like they have so much young talent that's kind of just waiting in the wings to get an opportunity. I don't know how Sergio sticks around for next season either. I mean, if Daniel's not going to be there, then I don't know how Sergio can be there either. Like, I don't know if you just take Liam Lawson and you just put him into the big team, and that's just the way it's going to be. You let him go to RB for the remainder of the season, see what you've got, and if you feel that he could be able to keep up with Max, then you graduate him to the big team, and then you take one of your F2 drivers and you put them into the RB seat, and you just move out the older drivers and you move in the younger ones. Essentially, that's probably what we're looking at here. They don't know, right? That the thing is that they don't even know. Like, I don't even think they really know what they want that whole trajectory to even look like, because there's a lot of different balls that are up in the air for them.
Daniel was able to do an unbelievable test in that F1 car in the RB20, I think, or 2021.
RB19.
Or RB19, and It would have put him right next to Max on the front of the grid if he had done it in an actual race situation when he tested at Silverstone to get this seat back. Now, my question is, there are certain drivers that get to a point in their career where hacking their way through bad cars actually, like, that you don't see their full potential. I'm looking at a Valtteri Bottas, and I agree with him when he says, I'm racing better than I did at Mercedes. I do agree with him. The car is horrible. The car can't beat anyone. It's Haas from 2020. It's that bad. Is that the Mazepin year, or was that 2020?
Yeah, that was a bad car.
It was a bad car. Unfortunately the driver lineup too they were two rookies. In this particular case, I look at a guy like Daniel Ricciardo and go, this guy's used to driving better cars than this. And is it that he's maybe one of those drivers that only succeeds? I would put Lewis Hamilton in this category as well, because Lewis, when the car's slightly off, Lewis gets pissed off and he doesn't perform to his max. And you could see that with Mercedes in the way that when their car fell off, George Russell outscored him in his first season in Mercedes, right? Or at least for a while. I look at this and I think, could Daniel not do better in a better car and at least strategically work a little better alongside Max Verstappen? A better balanced car, a car that is obviously falling off as well. They're not going to be able to catch McLaren, but a car that could farm points. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot that you threw out there here, first of all.
Well, because you remember the jumping up and down and the fix your fucking car from Netflix or whatever. that George Russell was doing pretty well. Like, the story was Lewis wasn't. Right? And I think Lewis still finished second that year. But
now we got to go back and take a look at it.
But George was outperforming him for a bit, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, George has been Obviously a worthy teammate for Lewis for sure. He's been extremely good.
Yep.
And I think, that Haas, actually, I should say 2021 Haas was really bad. That was a bad car.
Bad car.
That was a very bad car, actually. The 2021 car, I think, was the worst. That was the worst. Anyways, so when we, I think it just boils down to this regulation, Adam. Like it's so different from, what the cars were in 2021, what they were in 2020, 2019, 18, 17, et cetera, all the way back to like 2014, right?
Yeah.
Like they were more like go-karts almost, and there was more front bite, and so you could be aggressive with the braking, you could be aggressive with your braking and turning in, you could have a nice pointy front end and, get the car into the corner and have some rotation on the rear and slam on the throttle. Well, not slam on it, but get back on the throttle and everything would be peachy. With these cars, it's a lot different. They're on a knife's edge. They're heavier. They generate a lot of understeer. And drivers who just don't like understeer are usually not very quick with this type of a regulation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's hard for a driver to, figure that out with setup. The team has to engineer the car more towards that. So if you take a look at like what Red Bull's done with Max's car, and actually even the Ferraris and their new suspension that they've brought to this thing are really quite intricate, where it allows for there to be a bit of rake in the car, and it allows for there to be some front end bite. And, that's what Max Verstappen likes. Lewis Hamilton likes that as well. A number of drivers can make that work, right? And that's kind of what, you want as a driver. And you want to be able to get late on the brakes, and you want to be able to do all these things, but it's hard to get the tire right in the right temperature without overheating it by driving to the style that you want. So there's so much going on just with car setup. And then also we need to factor in the level of drivers that are coming into Formula One are off the charts, man. Like the level of the younger talent that's coming in is always on it. Like always on it.
Yeah, we're going to talk Colapinto later.
Yeah, but honestly though, dude, it's harder for the older generation of driver, I think, to keep up with that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that, the Alonsos, the Hamiltons, they can't keep up with that. They can. Because they're naturally gifted. But, drivers who are not to that caliber would struggle to keep up with that on a consistent basis because, looking at the race today, or on Sunday, I should say, Lando Norris was absolutely dominant. Yeah. He's one of that younger generation that I'm talking about. Like he was incredible, man.
Well,
Adam, he dominated everybody, even his teammate. Like it wasn't even close. Like Piastri was nowhere like close to Lando's lap time. Like just wasn't in the race. Same with qualifying. Lando was great at executing with the tire that he had. Oscar used that tire earlier in the push lap, where Lando sort of conserved it and waited towards the end. And that's just like experience, it's smarts. It's like, he was just on it, man. Like, and so when I talk about the younger drivers, like the Piastris as well, like he's going to learn from that. And again, like he is going to be on it. And so we're not having these huge gaps between teammates anymore. We're like in, 2014, 2015, 2016, like we had these gaps, right? And we weren't really talking about it all that much, not unless it was a consistent thing.
Right.
Or now it's like, you look at Lewis and George, man, they're even though George can, put together a good quali lap. It's
still Lewis.
He's not beating Lewis by like, half a tenth or something, right? It's like hundredths of a second we're talking about.
Well, and the points I'm talking to you about, or I wanted to bring up earlier with Lewis and George, was 2022. That was the year after the 2021 scandal. And Max Verstappen first win, and we don't need to relitigate that, but it was an ugly finish to a wonderful year in 2021. 2022, everybody's ready for rematch, and Mercedes has a terrible car. But the guy that's able to pull off the terrible car, because he had come from a terrible car with Williams, was George Russell. He finished with 275 points to Lewis Hamilton's 240, which I think surprised everybody. Lewis Hamilton was sixth place, and again, mostly down to car. But I do think some of these experienced drivers do better in better cars. And, that kind of makes sense. If you're a scrappy or younger guy, you're probably not used to all the great things that come with being in a leading the pack car. Now, talking about Lando Norris, Tim, if we're going to switch gears here, what I found really fascinating was around lap 10, his race engineer says to him, okay, Lando, we need to get 5 seconds up on Max. And Lando's like, okay. And within a couple laps, he's 5 seconds up on Max. 5 more seconds than he was. I think he was probably 2.5, 3 seconds up on him already.
Yeah, he was.
And the fact that he was able to maneuver that and do that, and going into the weekend, and I think this is an important distinction because I don't think everybody knows it. There was the news about the McLaren back wing and the I want to call it the double diffuser. It's not.
Double DRS.
The double DRS. And the fact that they're going to have to amend that wing. But importantly, that wing was never going to be used for Singapore, correct?
Correct.
So they didn't have that issue. It was not something they expected to have. So not even a problem. And I think it wasn't going to be on again until what, Austin?
Vegas.
Vegas. Okay. So that's a while. You got some time. And you make some really great moves. What was it about Lando? Obviously, he had a good start finally, really good start.
Yeah, really good.
And Max was trying to hold off, I believe, Lewis Hamilton on the soft tires, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lewis tried to make that move early, so he was distracted.
Mm-hmm.
What was it the rest of the way that made Lando's drive so special? Because it is being I even read this morning, somebody in a pretty reputable source going, well, I wonder if McLaren's great car is covering for Lando's mistakes or Lando's shortcomings. And I thought that does not feel right. He's been pretty spectacular. This is third race of the year that he's won. What are your thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, he, like I had said, just a couple of minutes ago, I mean, he was incredible. That was like a championship level drive. It was on a track that's very unforgiving. Extremely physical, super hot, man. It was roastly hot there this weekend, more so than normal. And obviously these guys train for this race, and this is one of the races that I actually really try to peak for in fitness wise.
Yep,
is because of this race. But it was almost close to Qatar hot from last year, where the guys were just literally collapsing when they got out of the cars. I mean, they were close. Some of these drivers were really close to that. To try and just get out of the car was a challenge.
Wow.
So, and Lando doesn't like to drink all that much from the drinks bottle in the car anyways. He doesn't really like drinking the fluids that, come from the car. And I don't blame him. It's hot tea. It's disgusting. But when you're in that type of a race with no safety car, no moment to have a bit of a break, because the safety car can kind of give you that.
Yeah.
It can give you that break that you need. It was relentless. It was relentless. And for him just to scrape a few walls, almost crash. I mean, it was incredible. I think for the team, just having a car that was good, coming straight out of the garage was important, because they hit the ground with the perfect setup. And that is sort of that launching point for the rest of your weekend, because once you've kind of really nailed the setup, even before you've hit the track, then you're only fine tuning as you get close to qualifying. So the driver's already sort of in that zone of being really comfortable with the car. You could throw anything at that car, crap tires that are impossible to warm up, and the driver can still finesse it and make it work. And that's one of the issues that we saw a lot this weekend, Adam, was the tires. Drivers really struggled with, the tires that were brought to this race. A lot of teams found it challenging to try and figure out the right operating temperature. And I think that's where we saw some of those big swings in performances that we saw in qualifying, where, you thought a driver was going to be on the front row, and then all of a sudden, they're 10th or 11th, and you're like, whoa, what the hell just happened, right?
Yeah.
And same thing goes with Verstappen. again, like that car, I had tweeted it out and I'm still going to stand by it. It had no business being in Q3. I mean, it didn't. And so Lando was pushed. Max tried to push him as much as he could. But I think for Lando, it was sort of that light switch moment where it's like absolute confidence with the car, but he also knows that he can beat Max Verstappen not only on the track, but also with this championship as well. And you can just see it. He just has that confidence now, which is great for us moving forward, because if he can keep this going and if Red Bull continue to struggle and Max like doesn't have these, incredible performances, then yeah, he's going to close up on him for sure. So that's what I saw from Lando all weekend. I just thought he was super impressive, and yeah, even Oscar struggled to keep up with him, which is weird because I mean Oscar's like, whew.
He had an amazing summer. An amazing summer. Tim, the math for people interested is that if Lando wins every race, but Max finishes second in every race, Max will still win.
Yeah,
and that includes the sprints. But Max didn't finish second in this race.
But there's that extra point for fastest lap, remember?
Excuse me, yeah, he did, sorry. But he's not been finishing second in every race, is what I mean.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of one of those things where I feel like, okay, that's a nice, funny little tweet, but the reality of the situation is much, much different.
Big time.
And
I think so.
And let's be honest, McLaren's got to be perfect. They got to be perfect.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they do. And we'll see what Red Bull's able to bring to Austin. I know they're probably they're working on something to try and kind of help bring the drivability of the car back to Max. And we'll see what that turns out to be. Maybe it's a front wing, maybe it's an underfloor. I mean, there's quite a bit on that car that needs to sort of be rearranged or reconfigured. But that being said, I mean, we're definitely in for like an incredible finish. And like I had mentioned with just that fastest lap thing, and in that one point that Lando loses because RB calls in Daniel Ricciardo to slap on a set of soft tires to let him go out and set a fast lap and take it away from Lando. I mean that could be the difference. That's what we're talking about now. Like and it's true. It could very well be the difference of whether or not Lando Norris wins this championship or he doesn't. I mean that's how close this thing's going to get. Adam, I think there was a lot of controversy surrounding the RB pit stop, bringing Daniel in. I mean.
How do you feel about those teams working together? Zach Brown called this in Bahrain. He said this before the season started.
It's true.
It's not
he did.
fair.
Well, actually, you know what? I want to ask you about this because you got a lot of knowledge on this stuff, Adams. When have you seen someone owning two franchises in the exact same sport?
The only time I can remember seeing it is in the CFL when the Argonauts almost went under, and the owner of the BC Lions had to step up and buy them to keep them out of like what's essentially bankruptcy receivership. And then the idea was that the CFL commissioner was going to work really hard over the next couple of years to find a new buyer for the franchise. So what the impetus for the BC Lions owner was, I'm going to buy it at a cut rate and I'm going to sell it at a profit. And in the meantime, I'll own two franchises and I'll get richer and we'll find a buyer for this if all goes well. It was a risk though. And that's really what happened in 2009, 2010, whenever this purchase went through, where, not only did the former Ford Jag, Red Bull team become what it is now, a few years before that, but they go and they purchase a team that was about to go under and keep it alive. And so, the sport has changed immensely in the last 15 years, especially in the last 7 or 8. And, there was a point where that made sense. But Red Bull, business-wise, if I'm their lawyer, I'm saying, wait a second, these guys took the risk when nobody else would. Mm-hmm. These guys bought this team when it was worth pennies. Mm-hmm. And there was no guarantee that they were ever going to make money off of it. There was no guarantee at that point. There was no cost cap, different ownership. different economic situation. The world had gone through the hardest economic situation since the Great Depression, and these guys stepped up and bought it and kept it and found a use for it. And so to say to them now, "Oh, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for us anymore," is it's tough because they put in the work. But the reality is that they have 4 drivers on the track. And motor racing, I understand, is different, right? It is a very different type of sport traditionally than – it's a lot more freewheeling, literally, than what we're used to in North America, which is, you have a franchise and there's only so many of them. But if you look at like European soccer, it's a lot more free, right? Because you can get demoted and you can go up and down and this and that, and there's many tournaments, whatever. I think, Tim, that at a certain point – somebody is going to have to say, all right, guys, we can't do this anymore. But it is a very difficult, thorny subject because this brand, Red Bull, has been one of Formula One's biggest supporters and big, like they dump a ton of money into Formula One every single year. And so if you're Formula One, you have to look at the Red Bull brand as one of your key partners. So what are you going to do, piss them off? Difficult conversation to have. But is it unfair? Sure, it's unfair. Formula One, things are unfair. You got to win anyway.
Well, I mean, RB is, denying the conspiracies for that.
I mean, why was Daniel going for fastest lap?
Right. Well, I think,
come on.
The way RB is kind of framing it is that they wanted to, if Daniel was going to be, leaving the team, they wanted to, give him some sort of a reward in doing so. And again, like, Daniel had said at the end of it, paraphrasing obviously, but, I'm going to have a good Christmas present if, Max wins the championship by 1 point. And I think he gets a bonus if
they say it's $3.5 million, by the way, if Max wins.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean,
so hold on. If Max wins, Daniel gets a bonus, but the two teams don't work together.
Right.
Come on.
Exactly.
Come on.
Well, just taking you through it, buddy. Just taking you through it. This is what I've heard.
And Tim, to be clear, like I don't really have I know why Zach. If I was a McLaren guy, and I am a McLaren fan to the max, but if I were Zach Brown, I'd be complaining about it.
Well, I mean, McLaren. So, like Andrea Stella, the team principal at McLaren, he wants that relationship between Red Bull Racing and RB to be looked at or to be addressed. Believe is the word he had used because of the fastest lap and the stolen point. Well, I guess Daniel doesn't get a point, neither does RB because they weren't in the points to begin with. So getting the fastest lap, which is a totally different subject, by the way, but I'm really interested because I wanted to ask you about this as well, but I'll finish my thought on the fastest lap thing. Again, since Daniel took the fastest lap away from Lando doesn't get the extra point. Daniel doesn't get the point either, but he does just get the fastest lap, right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense. I kind of agree with you in the sense that it's definitely a conversation I think Formula One's going to probably need to address. I would say soon. Yeah. And
part of it is to be taken seriously, I think. Like
for sure.
Like no other major sport really has this.
For sure.
You kind of need to talk about that.
Like now you do too, especially with like Liberty Media coming in, and obviously they know how American sports go and they want their sport to be taken seriously in North America. And I could see them having a conversation with both teams for sure, and to see what can be done. I've always like, I mean, it's look, they went out and bought the team and saved it from going under and
lost money on
kept it alive. Lost money on it for sure. But now they can make money back. And not only can they make money back, they can make a lot of money back. We're talking billion. Like we are talking over $1 billion. No problem.
I'd be shocked if it went for less than $1.5 billion.
And there's no way exactly. And there's no way they've spent that much on it, Adam.
No, of course not.
There's no way. So the amount in return that they would make, I mean, it'd be you'd be getting a good payback for sure. But then again, I mean, so much murky waters with it, right? It's like, who buys it? Do they move it? They already have a factory set up. They employ people.
They'd have a lineup of people that want to buy it.
They would, for sure.
There's
there
only
would be
10
people.
of these franchise tags, because they are franchise tags now, right? They're not just a team anymore.
No.
There's only 10 of them in the entire world. There's a lot of billionaires, man. They would all want it. And
sure.
And here's the thing with private equity money right now, the big thing is buy sports, buy sports. It's the only thing that you can rely on even through a bad economy, which is what we're kind of dealing with worldwide right now. The only thing that's going up consistently. And you look at like Claire Williams did an interview on a podcast, I think last week, and she was talking about the fact that she's like, the franchise values have exploded and we missed it by 1 year.
Wow.
1 year. And that's painful. And I like Claire Williams a lot. I think she's honest and
she's awesome.
I think she's spectacular. Yeah. I'm glad she's coming out and talking about it. I'm sure that selling the team, but only getting 150 million pounds for it really stings. And the fact that she's able to, is not hiding from that is amazing. And I think when you look at like a V-Carb franchise, you have, Tim, you'd have North American buyers, you'd have European buyers, you'd have Asian buyers, you'd have South American buyers, you would have African buyers, you would have buyers Middle East, you'd have them all over the world. Anywhere where there's money, yes, because Formula One is a global sport. With the exception of the continent of Africa, it's everywhere. And, there has been races, and I think one day we'll get a race in South Africa again.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time here. I think we'll get maybe one or two more teams max. That kind of thing. There's money for that. There's people for that. You'll find a buyer in about 10 seconds. It's just a matter of who it is and are they committed to the sport.
I would just be curious, is like, if they're not going to sell it, then what does Formula One do about it? Because, I mean, it's not only going to be McLaren who's going to be complaining about this. I mean, next year we're going to have more than two teams fighting for a driver's championship. If you look at just the last 7 races, you have, I think there's like 4 or 5 drivers in contention for the championship. So, I mean, what are you going to do next year? I mean, this is what we're kind of trending towards. So how do you handle that? Because not only is McLaren going to be upset about it, and look at from Zach's perspective, he grew up with North American sports, so he looks at this like, especially with like baseball and stuff. He's a huge fan in the NHL as well, and he'll look at that and be like, okay, well, how does that work? Because it doesn't work anywhere else. So how does it work here, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's a positive thing because of where Formula One is at, for sure. But it's also a negative in terms of your on-track competition and what's surrounding it. So it does need to be addressed. It does need to be looked at. I'll just be curious as to know how they are going to handle something like that. I want to talk to you about the fastest lap, Adam, because I would love to know what you think about having a point for fastest lap.
I think I think the point should count no matter where you are in the race. I'm that extreme on it. I know there's a lot of people purists that hate that. I like a point for fastest lap. I remember when I used to watch. There was a Canadian driver who used to race. Was it Ron Fellows?
Ronnie.
Ron Fellows. It was a yellow Corvette that he used to drive, and I forget what series that is, Can-Am or something like. Anyway,
the yellow Corvette, the Corvette that he ran in American Le Mans series. It ran in 24 Hours of Le Mans.
So I watched him at Mosport and in that car, and one of the things that you got a point for was being the lap leader after the first lap. So you got in that particular circuit. That's what it was. I like fastest lap. I like point for fastest lap because, Tim, the whole point of the sport is to go fast. And to be the fastest. And I think it's kind of cool that Daniel Ricciardo was able to do that in a car that nobody thought could do that. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I am not a big fan of giving a point for fastest lap. If we want to add more points, you should probably be taking away points, in my opinion. Like, you should be taking away like 25 points for a winner, and then that's too much. I think you need to lop 2 points off of that And it should be 23 points for the winner. Like, that's the way I look at it, because you should be hard to get points. Like, every series I've raced in was like hard to get a point. Like, it was hard to stay in a championship battle if you weren't like on it. You had to be on it to get the point,
right?
Or points. So I mean, that's the way I kind of look at it. I look, now that it's here and it's probably not going anywhere, then yeah, I think that fastest lap point should be hard to get. And if you're setting the fastest lap and you're 18th, then you should get a point for it.
That's what I think. Yeah, because people will be like, well, there'll be lots of guys harvesting points from the back of the field. Guys, if it was up to stake F1, they couldn't do it. Most cars are in the back of the field because they can't post a fastest lap. And so the fact that Danny did it, man, I was like, man, that's awesome. That's cool. Like, I don't know. And from a fan perspective, and I think Mark Webber talked about it in his book as well, Tim. He doesn't like that, it's beyond the top 8 now. It used to only be the top 8.
Yeah.
I like that, because if you have that many drivers finishing without points, it really does kind of like, if you're a fan of a bad team, and like I'm a McLaren fan, I've seen them finish third, I've seen them finish last or close to it. I at least want some reason to be interested. I want the points. The points do count for something. If only half the field gets it, it's really hard. And sometimes those guys that just squeak into 10th and get that 1 point, they're freaking out because we're like, I got it. I freaking got it, and I got more points than the 10 guys behind me. It really does matter. So that's my opinion on it. From a fan perspective, I find it, if there were things, and I like the sprint race, I like all of that. For me, this is an entertainment product first and foremost. How do we make it entertaining for the fans? And the more interesting little quirks and whatever that you can find that really genuinely makes sense in a racing sense, I think the better. That's just me. It's a long season, right?
It is. And I think the more you can kind of make sure that someone is absolutely not blowing everybody away and opening up like a huge, like insurmountable gap, is that you cut the points down. You just...
Yeah.
Then you keep it closer, or you add more points and you spread those points out throughout the field, something similar to like what IndyCar does. And
yes.
Every year with IndyCar, man, we're coming down to the last race of the season. Like it's a battle. It's a battle. And I don't remember an IndyCar season in the last 10 years, maybe 15 years, where it didn't come down to the last race. Like
that's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, you want that. Like, I think as a sport, you would want that. Like, you look at how a team gets to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, it's a war.
It's a war.
All the way through.
All the way through. And then once you get to the Stanley Cup, you got to win the freaking thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, but the best seasons of Formula One are the same way. The 2021 season with Max and Lewis, what a battle. That was amazing. Think about Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton.
Storylines galore. It was they were incredible seasons, incredible finishes. Like, and then last season it was just. Hey, look! I respect the fact that Adrian Newey built a monster of a car, and Max Verstappen was at peak form, which was impressive to watch those two things combined together. But you still want to see, a massive fight. Like, it's what you want.
My wife, who is Dutch, is like, I'm tired of watching Max win.
Huh?
I know. It's funny. And I don't think she hasn't picked a team or anything, but and everything else she'll cheer for the Dutch. In Formula One, she's like, I've seen Max win enough for a lifetime. I'm like, well, you missed the Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton dominant years. So the reality of it is, though, Tim, the reason for the cost cap was to
bring everybody closer together. Exactly. Yeah. Bring everybody, and same with the wind tunnel and the CFD design, and same with this regulation that we're in. It was all about bringing everything converging faster, making sure no teams really got a huge, dominant car.
Yeah.
And but now that we've gone through this regulation for so long and we are where we're at, I mean, that next season is going to be amazing. The finish to this season is going to be incredible. And then we're going to have, again, another sort of reset. Anyways, we're taking this show down the wrong track.
I got one more question, and then we'll get to the questions. I think
Adam, I just wanted to actually, you ask your question, and then I'll.
Okay, well, because
go for it.
It's a topic that I want to bring up.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
And you mentioned earlier about these young drivers coming in and being spectacular. I don't know what people's expectations of Franco Colapinto would have been 3 races ago, but I can tell you, as a fan watching, you almost go, do they need Carlos Sainz? Now, his dive bomb down, was it quarter 1 or quarter 2?
So Alex took that back. He
did.
He walked that. He walked that back. After
but
the race.
it was a very EA Sports Formula 1 video game move. That was a crazy move, and the fact that he came away with his entire car intact is crazy. And he finishes in the top 10. He gets points again. And I look at him and I think, damn, this is the next generation is here. They're just knocking at the door. A guy like this, you got to think Sauber's probably taking a look and going, ooh.
Oh, for sure.
How do we not go get that guy?
Yeah, 100% he's in the conversation, man. And Colapinto finished 11th, so just outside.
Oh, sorry, just 11th. Sorry,
but he was pushing Sergio for that. He was pushing Sergio in a Red Bull race in the RB20, for a point.
That's nuts.
But it shows that the upgrades that Williams have been working on so hard, that they're working obviously, and it also shows the level of driver Franco has started to turn into. I mean, every Grand Prix so far, the last 3 that he's kind of gone into, it just looks like he doesn't have anything to lose. I think that's the mindset where it's I got nothing to lose. I'm here to try and secure a seat or show that I belong, and whatever. I'm gonna do what I got to do. I rewatched his onboard camera at least 20 times because it was that impressive. Because at one point it looks like he's going to run into the back of the car in front of him, because it looks like he looks down real quick to make a steering wheel adjustment because he still doesn't have the steering wheel memorized. Yeah. And I don't blame him because it's a lot to be thrown at a guy. And so you can just watch. If you go back, I posted it on my Twitter, but yeah, he just has a quick little look down, makes a quick little switch, and then all of a sudden he looks up and he's like, oh God, and he moves out of the way. And he just knows that there's enough grip on the dirty side of the track and makes the pass of the race. It was awesome. I sat up on my couch when I watched it live because I thought he was just going to take everybody out.
Yeah, it looked like that. It looked like that.
Oh my God, man.
That's confidence, man.
Oh,
that's crazy.
It was awesome. It was great to see. I mean, that's what I always say about the rookies and the younger drivers when they come into F1, right? They always
we're gonna have 3 or 4 of them next year.
Yeah, they always show you. They show you that one little thing, Adam, where they're just F it, they just go for it. And that's what I love about watching the younger drivers when they get into F1, man. That's always so much fun to see that. But no, he's been super impressive, Adam, and yeah, definitely Sauber and his camp are having conversations for sure.
What do you think's more likely? Because Bortoleto obviously is a part of the McLaren family, Colapinto part of the Williams family, and after the I would say the lack of success with Logan Sargent. The Williams program, the Williams driver program, which they've always had, but they really want to develop. Franco Colapinto is a direct result of that driver program and might be its best graduate since George Russell. I guess George was more Mercedes.
Well, he's more
Williams,
Mercedes.
But they were connected, and
yes.
You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Franco Colapinto could be a guy that really makes that program. Because the thing is that these programs, when you're a Kimi Antonelli at 10, 12 years old, when you're a Charles Leclerc at 10, 12, Lando, Max, you're looking at each driver program and going, which program graduates the best drivers?
Yes.
Right? Right now, it's the Red Bull. Red Bull. End of story. No contest. If Kimi Antonelli comes in and tears it up next year, people are going to be looking at the Mercedes program. And what it does for these teams is their feeder system grows and they have access to better drivers under contract at a lower amount of money for a longer period of time if they're able to build these systems up. How much would Williams push for Colapinto to be at Sauber? Because it might make them look really good.
Like I'm sure they would push at him, but it's challenging when you don't have um I don't want to say pull, but at the same time, it's like they don't have any relationship, right? Like there's no relationship between the two teams.
Right.
Where now, I mean, obviously, we've had that conversation about Red Bull and RB, and
Yep.
there is a place for those younger drivers to go to and to learn and mature. But I mean, for a team like Williams, like that's all you got. You've got your two seats, and that's it. So they don't really have anything to like with Mercedes. It was like to get George Russell in there. It was kind of like that deal where Claire was like, okay, well, you give us a cut on the engines, like
Yep.
don't charge us as much, or rear end gearbox. We'll take George on, and we'll help groom him and get him ready for Mercedes. And then also at the same time, Claire's like, oh, heck yeah, we'll take George Russell in our car. This young, this young superstar coming out of Formula 2 who's won everything. Definitely we'll take him and put him in our team. And then with Williams and Sauber, like there's nothing that Williams has that they can like say to Sauber, like, hey, you want to take Franco and we'll give you XYZ, or you know what I mean? It's like, It's just nothing there. So like Val's wouldn't stand in Franco's way, that's for sure.
Okay.
And same with like McLaren, they wouldn't stay in Bortoletto's way. They wouldn't stand in Bortoletto's way either. And then for Valtteri, I think he feels that he's getting close to something with the team. So it's again that seat. That's still up in the air with where that's going.
Right, man. This is it's going to be very interesting the next few weeks with what's going on at VCarb and what's going on at Sauber.
Man, absolutely, man. Adam, we spoke Thursday about swearing.
Yeah. Oh, the Max stuff. Oh my God.
So
him holding his own press conference. I love.
Well, here's the thing. Hold on. So as we watch our sports here in North America, and we see what athletes do in post press conferences and pre press conferences, and where do you stand in all this? Do you think Max should have been given a penalty, which is essentially community service?
Yeah.
So the FIA. For those who don't know, Max swore in Thursday's FIA press conference when describing what his car was like at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. I mean, was raw emotion, right? It was what like we want sometimes, right? Yeah, right. He's literally telling you how he feels, and I don't have a huge issue with that. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be doing it all the time. And you don't want to be turning the press conferences into a big swear fest. And look, I get that. But at the same time, he literally told you something in the moment, heat of the moment. Yeah. And so, do you think he should have been given a penalty for that?
Well, no.
I mean, there is a lot going on outside of that under the surface with all this as well. So
yeah, and I think, Lewis Hamilton's comments on it, I think are the most distinct and the best one, which is he's like, I hope he doesn't even bother doing the community service. It's like, why would you show up for that? You're not showing up for that. Because here's the thing about Max and Lewis and guys like that. Okay, you can find them. What's your sport without them? Mm-hmm. What are you marketing without them? Mm-hmm. Who do the sponsors want? Mm-hmm. They want Max. They want Lewis. Mm-hmm. They might want Lando if he wins the championship this year. But those two Max and Lewis are the most marketable names in the sport. And you're going to give Max community service over a curse word? That, by the way, drivers have been cursing over the radio for years. Mm-hmm. And you know what we do? We bleep it. And we talked about this Thursday. If you don't want your kids watching that, watch the Formula One Kids feed. They have that. What I love about Formula One is drivers being honest. They don't give me, in North America, you have media trained people who give you bullshit answers. They give you a lot of words and not a lot of substance because they don't want it made a story. Whereas in Europe and Asia, it's not like that in the same way. We're all adults here. We've heard curse words. This is people who are living life on its most extreme edge. Yeah, swear a little bit. Okay. Well, you know what? You know what will happen? The editor back at Sky Sports or TSN or whoever's running it will just bleep it. It's not hard.
Mm-hmm.
Really not hard. So Tim, I think it's quite short-sighted, especially when you are at, the heads of the FIA need the top drivers on side. They need to be able to work with these guys. And so you're gonna pick and choose this issue, because what'll happen is the next time you need them on an issue to work with you, they're gonna look at you and go, I'm busy that day. I've got community service. You know what I mean? Like that's and Max talking about openly, it's this kind of stuff that drives him nuts about Formula One. And he doesn't seem to have the drive to be like, I need to be the greatest F1 driver ever. He's like, I can just leave. I just go do something else. So he's got the money. So
Max wouldn't really give any answers then. So since he was hit with that penalty on the Friday, he had told so the drivers have a GPDA group chat, like WhatsApp group chat.
Yeah.
And he had notified everybody in the group chat, and like everyone was like laughing, like, are you serious? Like, how is that even possible? And the GPDA doesn't really like to air their dirty laundry into the media. I think that's like one of the most important things for them, is just making sure that they're not going to the media. They're going straight to the FIA, Formula One, whoever, and having that conversation. And so for this one, Max went to Saturday's FIA post-qualifying press conference, and he wouldn't talk. Like, he gave one-word answers. Basically told the reporters, like, look, hey, you want to talk to me? And this is like in the press conference, dude. Mm-hmm. You want to talk to me? We'll go outside and we can talk. We'll talk there in the paddock, because that's sort of the, that's sort of like you're on the streets and you can be interviewed at that moment. That's kind of like what the paddock is sort of like. And so Max leaves the press conference. He goes out to the paddock and he does his own sort of impromptu press conference there on Saturday, does the same thing Sunday, and refused to talk in the FIA press conference. Refused. And basically that's him pushing back on the penalty that he was given by them, and not allowing him, I guess, to express and be himself. Mm-hmm. And so I found that very interesting. I liked it. I think that was the move that he wanted to do, and I think it sent a message for sure. Now, is the FIA going to take back the penalty? I mean, I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
but
you're not going to enforce it.
We'll see. I mean, but at this moment, though, the drivers are going to hold some talks to decide how they're going to respond to the FIA and the president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, after this whole Sweargate thing. Like, they're going to have to sit down and have a meeting on how they're going to deal with this. And you know what? I'd like to see the drivers come together on certain things.
Yeah.
And I think, they should be allowed to express themselves.
Yes. And frankly, this is so stupid. Like,
it is.
We're having one of the better Formula One seasons we've ever had. Why are we worried about the swearing?
I know.
Who cares?
Like, it's like, yeah.
Who cares?
I mean,
and you know what? If the FIA president needs to say it and go, guys, I really wish we wouldn't swear so much. We're really looking into it.
But like, even the way that he wrote it, though, Adam. Like, did you see how he wrote it? Like,
yeah, I think Lewis took issue with that too, right?
And so he should. I mean, absolutely. I was more offended by. I was more offended by how he had worded it. You know what I mean? Like, then someone swearing. Like, right. Man. It's and
Lewis said there was a racial element to that, right? And I think he's probably not wrong. And I think Lewis and him don't get along very well. I think if you're politically playing this, and all of this is political, if I was the head of the FIA, I would just say it and be like, man, I wish our drivers wouldn't swear as much, and then I would do nothing about it. So that way you're putting a public face out that we don't like swearing. And I'm leaving my drivers alone.
But is it
raking millions?
Is it his? But my question is it his spot to say that?
Well, I want to know where he's not saying it, because he's not saying it out of the blue, Tim. Somebody is pushing him on this, or a group of somebodies. Who is upset about this? I don't think the FIA is really upset about this. Somebody who funds the FIA or they're in league with or whatever is upset about this. I don't know why, but that would be the only reason he would say it, right? Who's he responsible to? He's responsible to his organization. Who's his organization responsible to? The people helping to fund the sport. So is it the sponsors that are upset? And they don't want to take, because that's essentially like a commissioner of a league. His job is to be the guy that people throw rocks at. In the NHL or in the NFL, you got Gary Bettman, Roger Goodell. Their job is to represent the owners and do the owners' bidding and take all the crap for the owners for unpopular policies that the owners don't want their face on, right? So that's where I'm like, where's this coming from, really? And why now? What is it? Right? And is it decency laws in certain countries? Is it like, what is it? So just a thought. I don't know.
I'm going to be interested. Yeah, I'm just going to be interested to see how all this sort of unfolds because I don't think this is over. And
you don't think it's over, eh? I thought they've just leave it.
I don't think the drivers are. I don't think the drivers are backing down from this one. Like This is like when you're getting together with the GPDA and that leaks out into the media. I mean, definitely something I think is going to come from it. But I mean, let's see what happens.
Yeah. All right. So do you want to get to some questions?
Yeah, we got quite a few. Some of them we kind of already sort of answered, but there are some that they're worded a little differently, but they're good. I like them. So Parth Lad asks, in the scenario that Red Bull opts to walk away from Sergio Perez either before or during next year, who do you see being promoted to the second Red Bull seat? Adam, we kind of talked about it as like that sort of young driver sort of moving in. And I think if Daniel, since we don't know, if Daniel's going to go, then I think at the same time, you have to reconsider what you're doing with Sergio. And if he can't get consistent performances like we saw in Azerbaijan and Baku, and then I think it's, you have to move on from that. And then if you're going to do that, then I think you got to bring your young drivers in. Have to.
Right. And it doesn't seem like Horner doesn't seem to want Yuki Tsunoda.
But Christian Horner also talking, Adam, to Sky Sports about George Russell for 2026. Yes. Right. And obviously he's winding, Toto up, right? Like he does that.
Yes.
And same thing, like Toto's winding him up by like, I'm going to go after Max, which he probably will go after Max.
Yep.
But yeah, again, I mean, that's kind of how I see that all playing out. I don't see George Russell being swayed to Red Bull, not unless he has a horrible season and Toto doesn't want to keep him.
I think that's probably Christian getting one in because Mercedes has put the full court press on getting Max Verstappen, and they've been very open about it. I look at this, man, and Tim, it doesn't seem like Yuki Tsunoda is a guy that Christian Horner wants on his team. So Liam Lawson, Daniel Ricciardo would make sense from a veteran point of view, but Liam Lawson was spectacular when he came in. I'm excited to see this guy, so it might be him.
Tamara Sutherland says, watching the post-race interviews with Daniel Ricciardo was very hard to watch and felt like he fully expected this to be his last race in F1. What's your personal feeling on this, given that his team did him no favors today with bad strategy and using him as a pawn with the fastest lap? Adam, what do you think?
I think they did him a favor by getting his name in the headlines with the fastest lap. I don't think it's his last lap in Formula One. I don't.
Okay.
I don't think it's done. I think this is a sport that changes a lot, and I think it was Martin Brundle that said it's a fashion sport. And what he means by that is now it's going to be fashionable to bring rookies in. But what happens with rookies? They create problems. Rookies do rookie things, and what'll happen is the pendulum will swing back. And if he keeps healthy, stays in the Red Bull system, and maybe does another year as a reserve driver where he gets some more time off or whatever, you just never know what could happen to him.
For at here for Leafs, and that is spelt with a number 4. Are they considering making 2 stops mandatory? The 1 stoppers are getting old, along with the tire management, but now it's becoming not racing, just management from lap 3 from every driver. If not, they need to do something about tires. Good sort of, I don't know if that's a question or sort of a statement, but
we know how you feel.
I got pick that out. But I mean, some good points with the management. I mean, it is a conversation I actually did have with a few people within F1 teams this past weekend is the fact that since the tires were so challenging, what I wonder what Pirelli will do moving forward, because the management side of the sport I am not a huge fan of, just simply because, like, as a racing driver, you're programmed to be aggressive, be flat out all the time.
Yep.
And sort of push that envelope all the way through. And so I would be curious to see if the drivers, if they complained enough, or if they got the teams to lobby for them, could they get Pirelli and Formula One on board with trying to maybe doing away with a little less degradation within the tire to allow the driver to push more, because I do see what the question is, and I kind of agree with it. So
yeah,
I'd be interested to see if that is a conversation that could ever take place.
You want to create more instances of Franco Colapinto dive bombing down the straight more than just in the first lap, right? You want it to happen throughout the race, but I would say part of motor racing is managing the car you have, managing the tires you have.
Right, Adam, but like at the same time with like F1 though, like remember back in like the tire war era with Bridgestone and Michelin, I mean, they weren't managing I almost swear that they weren't managing anything. Like they were pushing
here, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. They were
Adam, you're going to find me.
No, I'm not. That's a great thing. I'm not going to. And I'm not pro swearing, but I'm not anti-swearing either. You're right, Tim. Yes. But Formula One seems bound and determined we're going to have one tire person or one tire sponsor in the sport, right?
But like, Max, okay, if we get to like lap 3,
yeah,
and Lando's being told to open the gap, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, yeah, no problem. I'm going to open that 5-second gap, and then it turns into like 20 something because he's able to kind of like make the tire work and manage it and all that kind of stuff. Well, then if Max doesn't want him to get away, Max can just push, but he can't because the tire's going to like degrade and then fall off a cliff.
Yep.
But then we would have seen it would have been a closer battle.
Yes.
So that's sort of where this question is coming from, right? Like I get it. So
I think you wait till the 2026 regulations and then see what you can do about it, because there's no point in changing it now. You need to see what you have in 2026.
Okay, last question here. It's for this is probably an Adam question from Diana Leifer. McLaren spending next year's cash on this year's project, possibly causing suffering for next year.
Who cares about next year? You get a championship to win now. Why are we worried about that? That's no. You need to focus on now. Now, Tim, I don't know that they're spending next year's cash now. I don't know.
No,
if that's
I don't think they are.
Yeah. That's a budget team thing. Like Haas was like, well, we need to save money because we need to spend it on next year's car. But yeah, I don't think that they are. And to be honest with you, you might only get one shot at this. Spend the money. If they are spending into next year's cash, good. Win. Yeah. You got to win.
Yeah.
And guess what happens when you win? You make more money.
Make more money. Yeah, exactly. I don't there's no way that team would spend if anything, they are spending next year's cash, they're spending it on next year's car.
Right.
Because that's basically where we're at with this whole thing. Is they are working on parts for this year's car. They have one more upgrade, sizable one. They have other little upgrades coming, but they have one more, I think, sizable one coming for Austin, I believe. And then, I mean, the focus is going to be on the 2025 car, and it probably already has been since June. So, I mean, the money that they're going to spend is, they're going to spend that on next year's car. They're probably already spending it on next year's car. So, I mean, they're not really, I wouldn't be too worried about that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Adam, that's, I mean, pretty much, everything we got.
Now we do have the United States Grand Prix coming up.
Yes.
That is coming up in a while. There's a big gap here, guys. We've got that's not till October the 20th, Tim.
I know. We got 3 weeks. Crazy. Adam, what are we going to do in 3 weeks? What am I going to do with 3 weeks? I can't sit still for 3 weeks.
Well, we're going to watch IndyCar guys give each other the finger and subtweet each other, which I love.
But IndyCar's over now too. Like we can't even watch IndyCar. Like it's over.
Yeah, no, we'll find things to do. You know what, Tim? I think there's going to be some news over the next few weeks, and maybe we can work on some interviews or something too. We can always have some fun with that.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about it, definitely. But we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we might have some news coming here shortly. So let's see what happens.
Perfect.
Buddy,
we'll end it there. Wrap it there.
Dude, wait. From this point on, the only thing that's going to keep me busy is just basically stirring it up in our fantasy football league.
Tim, I drafted the worst fantasy football team ever. Garbage, just terrible. I'm an idiot.
So bad.
Yeah, it was so bad. And one of my, so for anybody that plays fantasy football, my tight end position last year was the worst. So I drafted Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce, and Mark Andrews put up 0 yesterday. Zeros. Yes. I'm so mad, Tim. And then my best wide receiver's injured, Puka Nacua, man. So I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble.
I mean, last year. So for people who don't know, so last year our championship final game came down to me and Jesse. And so for those who don't know Jesse's on Adam's show SDP, and I lost to Jesse in the championship finals. He smoked me because like McCaffrey got injured. I had another guy get injured. My quarterback got injured. I had to, get Joe Flacco off of waivers.
Yep.
But it just wasn't enough out of him. But anyways, I played Jesse. We had a rematch. Was this weekend. Absolutely smashed him. So I wrote in our group chat, because our group chat is blowing up right now as Adam and I are recording.
Just
everybody's giving me a hard time because I don't ever write in it until like Monday after the weekend, where I have something smart to say. So.
Oh, it's going to be good, Tim. It's going to be good.
Yes, it will be.
Well,
anyways, buddy, we can end it there.
Yeah, okay. We'll end it, and I'll just say I'm depressed because I finished 3rd last year, and I'm probably going to be dead last this year. I'm awful. Oh,
buddy, thanks for taking the time to do this, dude. This is great.
Thanks, man. Take care.